So by now you've probably heard that the Motus Projects is shutting down. They just announced it recently. With Giles and a couple of the other guys moving over to Store, another parkour brand, to work on the clothing side of their business. If you don't know who Motus is, they are a parkour brand from the UK that has been putting out videos and merch for years, specifically related to parkour. They are a longtime favorite of the Empire community here. We've been wearing Motus clothes for years, and we're really sad to see them go, as I'm assuming a lot of other people are as well. So, to celebrate what Motus was and what it represents, I'm just gonna go over some of my favorite pieces, maybe some of my favorite moments, and specifically how Motus has helped the parkour community as a whole, but also our community and myself personally. Over the years, Motus has produced some of the most influential videos for our sport, starting with Origins, Resurgence, and then Soul Destroyer, just to name a few. Not only did these videos push the sport forward with new moves we had never seen before, they also elevated the look of what parkour videos could and should look like. As a parkour filmmaker, these videos constantly inspire me and pretty much have inspired every video I've ever made in the parkour world. They are just that good. On top of these videos pushing the sport and elevating the production quality, they also demonstrated how parkour could function as a business, with Soul Destroyer being one of the earlier videos that was pay-per-view. You had to buy it or rent it to even see it. And earlier on in the parkour scene, that was seen as a negative, but it can only produce better content as we move forward. And those early videos, along with a lot of other ones that were coming out from other teams and companies, were what inspired me to even pick up a camera and start capturing my own parkour movement to begin with. Eventually, I combined my photography hobby with my love for parkour clothing and just started doing photo shoots with a lot of clothing that I was buying at the time. And Motus, I think, was the first parkour brand that took notice of it and actually started reposting a lot of my work and even putting it in the magazine that they would include with your order. So it was really exciting for me the first time, and I didn't even know it beforehand. When I opened up a clothing order, opened up the new issue of the Motus magazine, and to see a picture of mine in there, that was a very exciting moment for me. And those early moments of support really helped me push myself forward to keep capturing parkour and just keep pushing it. When we were a much smaller team, before we even had the gym, we would run our own community events and competitions, but we didn't really have anything to give away as prizes. So I would reach out to different parkour brands all over the world to try to gather prizes so that we could give out at these events. Most of the brands that I did reach out to at that time were gracious enough to donate prizes that then we could then hand out at our events. But Giles was usually the first one to reply, and the only question he ever asked was, "What do you need?" That early support for those events in the beginning was so important for the continued growth of those events. We all know that the parkour community globally is very welcoming, but for me to reach out to brands like Motus to ask for free stuff essentially, and for them to come back and say, "No problem, what do you need?" I can't thank them enough. While we were building the gym, we were putting out a weekly video series called Building an Empire, where we pretty much just documented our process while we were building the gym. Just as it happened, we put it out. And about halfway through the build, after a few episodes had come out, I was listening to an episode of the Motus podcast, and they started talking about the videos we were putting out, documenting the build out of the gym.
Speaking of exciting things, I just want to give a shout out to Empire Parkour, which is they've been around for years, and they've been coaching in other gyms and other people's kind of facilities and things.
At the time, I wasn't really focused on who was watching them or how far they were going. We were just busy putting them out as we went and just trying to get the gym built. So to hear hype building around the gym from communities across the world was so exciting to me, and I think it helped put Empire on the map more than we would have been able to do on our own. And before the build out finished, I even managed to get Giles himself on an episode when we met up in Vancouver for NAPC. So that was kind of a cool full circle moment to meet someone that was so supportive of us before even meeting us, and then to have him come on one of our videos. It was awesome. Shortly after that, a few months after the gym had opened actually, Giles reached out to me and asked if I wanted to be on the podcast myself, talking about the process of building the gym and putting up these videos. And I may have underplayed how excited I was to be a part of that process. I listened to every single episode of that podcast, and obviously I'd been a fan of Motus and all the work Giles had done years prior to that. So to be invited and included on what I thought was like the pinnacle of like parkour discussion was super important to me, and like a big moment that I look back on fondly. So talking about the clothing now, Motus has been one of my favorite parkour brands since they started. Earlier on in the parkour world, the parkour uniform was essentially baggy sweatpants and a t-shirt, cheap pair of shoes, that kind of thing. Parkour brands at the time were developing their own fits and unique styles, which really helped elevate the look of parkour. I think those earlier brands, along with Motus, really helped pave the way for that visual identity. And it also became a big part of at least my personal identity. I really wanted parkour clothing so that I could show that this was something I was a part of, and this was something that meant a lot to me. And being able to support those brands so that they could keep continuing to make clothing was something very important to me. You could go to any parkour event, visit any community in the world, not even speaking the same language, but as soon as you see someone else wearing a brand that you're also wearing, the bond is already there. And it may seem superficial because it's just clothing, but that's a big part of our identity. That's how do you show someone you do parkour without showing them you do parkour? Now this one was my first piece from Motus. And I think it was from one of their first collections as well. I actually won this on a giveaway they were doing on Facebook or Instagram or something back in like 2014, 2015. I don't think I had won much in my life up to that point, so I was so excited when I won this. And I was just counting down the days till it showed up. And of course, in my fashion, I immediately grabbed it and started taking pictures with it. And it continues to be one of my favorite pieces in my collection. It kickstarted my obsession with parkour clothing, and I've been supporting Motus ever since, along with many other brands. Now, my favorite piece from Motus is the one I'm wearing right now. This is the tour t-shirt that came out a couple years ago with the Soul Destroyer collection. Now, the back of the shirt looks like a tour shirt from a band or something, but each city that's on there represents a community that has supported Motus over the years. And I want to personally take a little bit of credit for our city, Saskatoon, being on that list on the back. As I said earlier, Motus is a big community favorite. So many people in our community love it, a lot of our students as well. And it means a lot to me that we were able to support them so much that we got our name on there. Saskatoon doesn't get on the list for many things. So getting on there was a big accomplishment for me, and the community's pretty proud of it too. So as I've said, I've been collecting Motus clothing for years. I've got some pretty rare pieces. I'm not even sure the total of everything I have, but they are probably the brand, apart from my own, that I have the most clothing from. And I'm pretty proud of that. And while this is the end of Motus, those guys will continue to grow along with Store, and I'm very excited to see what they come up with in the future. So on behalf of myself, the Empire Parkour community, and the global parkour community as a whole, I would like to thank the Motus Projects for all the work they've put into growing parkour as a sport, pushing the sport forward, elevating our content, and just making parkour look better. Thank you.